conflict-affected areas. So this program is in addition to 20 other projects funded by IFAD, and the overall portfolio is worth $2 billion. And this program is an additional linkage, an additional opportunity for coordination. Practically in the field, our experience has been very interesting, very important. The project was designed throughout the period of the COVID-19 pandemic. So we worked online at distance, worked with our partners, representatives of the governments, representatives of the G5, and all of the financial and technical organizations that were interested in the area. So the design was carried out in each country in a way that was adapted to its specific context. And then we had a regional committee that pulled the threads and was able to develop an overall project. So that was for the design process. It was followed by approval by the respective governing bodies, and then financing agreements were signed during the G5 Sahel meeting in February 2021. So the process was quite rapid. Project design went from March to September 2021, overall signing in 21, and Senegal was the first country to meet all of the conditions, and therefore was the first country to be able to launch activities, followed by Burkina Faso, Niger, Mauritania, and Chad, who followed on by September. And so since then, all countries have launched their activities and funds have been allocated in the different countries. In terms of comparative advantages, I would say that from a technical point of view, what is important is that IFAD's current projects are covering a broad area of the Sahel, a calmer area, not necessarily the more conflict-prone areas, but from a technical point of view, we are following the entire value chain from production all the way through. So seed, irrigation, all the way through storage, harvesting and storage, processing, and then market outlet of the agricultural product, marketing, retail distribution. So we have continuous activity covering across the value chain, involving women and youth who are very active in many of these areas. And I think that our colleagues from Niger will tell us more about the special markets that exist at the border of Niger and Nigeria, and which I believe set an example. From a financial point of view, the comparative advantages stem from the fact that IFAD works on the basis of loans. There's a reflow of loans from governments to the region, but we also use grants from agencies working in the area. There's the Sahel Alliance, regrouping 25 development agencies currently. So we can act as a sounding board and really be in contact with a broad range of resource partners ready to support the program, as we saw in the film. Finally, from an institutional point of view, and I'll conclude with this point, we have projects that really, leading projects which really give strength to the overall program. Thank you. Thank you very much for that. So we've seen that FAO has considerable technical expertise and also has a standard-setting role and a role of relations with governments. IFAD has spoken of its experience in terms of project scaling up, and we've seen that working in areas affected by emergencies is not necessarily an area of great expertise of IFAD. It is very important that it works in partnership with the other organizations. And at this point, I would like to ask Ms. Elvira Puccini to answer the same question. The floor is yours. Good morning. We can hear you well now. Please go ahead.
So, Your Excellencies, heads of state and government, Your Excellencies, ambassadors, allow me to commend IFAD for bringing us together around this important event and to be at the starting point of the SD3C, working together with the G5 Sahel and 6 Sahelian countries. The regional challenges exacerbated by climate change demands unprecedented investments in land rehabilitation, but also in education, health and nutrition, green job creation for all, enabling social cohesion and better governance. Compounded effects of COVID-19, conflict and drought continue to impact food insecurity in West Africa. The region is facing the highest number of food insecure people since the launch of the cadre harmonisé in 2014. In the coming lean season, 38 million people are projected to be food insecure, an increase of 23% compared to last year. As Rome-based agencies, we have a long-term relationship serving populations for eradication of hunger, ensure food security and sustainable agriculture and food systems. So to answer your question, the Rome-based agencies complement each other to restore resilient productive capital and to improve economic opportunities and livelihoods in rural communities which we jointly target. This collaboration ensures coherence and strengthened effectiveness. To successfully implement the SD3C, WFP brings its expertise from the Sahel Resilience Initiative. Since 2018, WFP and communities have indeed worked together in land rehabilitation and rehabilitated more than 100,000 hectares of degraded land in the G5 Sahelian countries. In the past year alone, the program has reached more than 2.5 million people, reducing vulnerabilities and building resilience to shocks. Restoring landscapes and engaging the wider community goes far beyond food and nutrition security. It has the potential to ease conflicts. Sustainable land and natural resources management is at the center of the WFP integrated resilience approach, working to combat land degradation, restore ecosystems, and enable sustainable access to water. In practice, this means bringing degraded land back to life, enabling access to food and healthy diets, getting children back to school, and developing value chains to boost income and green jobs. So WFP brings this experience to the SD3C, but also our partnership with authorities and communities and our operational footprint and assets closer to the most affected populations, especially in remote areas, to prevent conflicts also. We bring people together to restore land, build community productive assets, enhance social cohesion, which is a major requirement to easing conflict in the region. Resilience building activities serve as a buffer to instability by strengthening solidarity between people, strengthen social safety nets, keeping land productive, and offering economic opportunities, which is conducive to peaceful cohabitation. To adapt to climate change, many communities have abundant knowledge of their environment and the natural resources they rely on. Such knowledge allows crops and trees to grow even with little or erratic rainfall. So a sustainable solution rooted in food production can go a long way in reducing malnutrition, increasing diet diversity, and improving nutrition. So finally, in some countries such as Niger and Chad, WFP will leverage the SD3C by bringing additional activities from our integrated resilient package, such as school feeding and nutrition-sensitive intervention, to provide a fully comprehensive package. Thank you.
Thank you for having kept to the time and shown how complementary your organization is to ensuring effective implementation in this area, which is very important. Now I would like to invite other members of our panel to answer other questions that we have, to give us a different perspective. And I will start by inviting the Executive Secretary of the G5 Sahel, His Excellency Ambassador Eric Yemdaogo Thierry. So the question is that we often say that there's no development without peace and no peace without development. We saw that also in the video. It was mentioned also by the representatives of the 3 United Nations Rome-based agencies. Sahel is facing many challenges, the challenge of climate change, conflict, terrorism, COVID-19 to mention, but a few of the challenges. So an answer, a coordinated answer, as Ms. Prushini said, is very important. According to you, and you have taken over heading the G5 only a few months ago, and you have a considerable experience in diplomacy. What do you think is the role of regional organizations, such as the West African Economic and Monetary Union, UMOA, CILSS, or the regional organizations, ROPA, APES, and others? So what is your opinion from the point of view of the implementation of this regional project in the Sahel area? You have the floor, Your Excellency. Thank you, moderator. And I would like to thank IFAD for having offered me this important opportunity to speak at the G5 Sahel. The question that has been posed is very true. We cannot speak of development without peace and peace without development. The two must go hand in hand, and this is very true. Ever since the G5 Sahel was set up in 2014, it has worked on the basis of two pillars, a development and a security pillar. So to answer your question, yes, G5 is working on these two pillars in partnership with regional organizations, such as the ECOWAS, such as WEMOA, the West African Economic Monetary Union. And in the situation now with the COVID-19 pandemic, we have been working also in other projects for youth, and they are all supported by the regional organization. We're working to ensure the conditions for the development of security in the region. Therefore, a strategic area that a strategic approach to the projects. This will involve transport, infrastructure, water management resources, communications. We're working in these areas in the G5 and working together with the Permanent Interstate Committee for Drought Control, the CILSS. And regarding security, here we have the support of the WEMOA, West African Economic and Monetary Union, and also the ECOWAS supporting the G5 Sahel. We're working to ensure coordination of the regional projects addressing food security and nutrition and the populations affected by climate change and the pandemic. So definitely we need to work with these regional organizations, and these are the areas we can work in. Regarding the involvement of producers' organizations, they are very important. And we have been working with these producers' organizations, and they are privileged partners for us for the economic and social development. These farmers' organizations are essential, and that includes ROPA, APES, and RBM. Their role and their experience in their specific areas is very important in the implementation of cross-border activities and also our participatory policy development. We work in particular on the cross-border areas, integration in these areas, address security through the different fora. Europa also is important in implementing our programs for a transition towards agroecology, for the development of family farming, smallholder farming, and other mechanisms, especially the programs to address COVID-19. It's important to develop capacity, introducing innovation through the implementation of controls in the dairy sector, for instance, cross-border projects, and supporting also the strategic project. And RBM is extremely important for management, for instance, of transhumance and investment programs in cross-border areas addressing the needs of pastoralists. So these are some examples that I can give, providing a rapid response to your very important question. And certainly this is an opportunity for us to reaffirm our willingness and a very positive appreciation that we have of our cooperation with the Rome-based agencies, IFAD, WP, and FAO, that are providing us with crucial support to implement our program in the field, and in this way provide a better contribution to inclusive regional development, supporting democracy and good governance in a regional and international context. So these are the main projects, the main goals of the G5 Sahel, and we need the support of the different regional organizations that I've mentioned before. Thank you. Thank you, Executive Secretary. And this was a very informative answer for me. I've often asked whether there was any competition among the different regional organizations, the G5 Sahel, and then WEMOA and the others. I thought I had understood that G5 Sahel was focusing chiefly on security, but you explained to us clearly that it has a dual mandate. It's security plus development in strong cooperation with the regional organizations. So thank you very much for that.
So now to get a view from the ground, we have Mr. Boubacar Tin, who is a pastoralist by training and coordinator for IFAD's program in Niger, and also coordinator of the implementation of the regional program, which we've been speaking about in Niger. So, coordinator, so we can see that the Sahel program is moving forward, and it's got this cross-border approach, and that has been operating for a year roughly now. So I'd like to hear a view, a perspective from the ground. You're in Niger, you're dealing with implementation and coordination. So maybe you can tell us a little about the coordination among the three RBAs in Niger, and also the inspiration that they take for this regional project, and what are the prospects for the region, and how do you hope to concretize the implementation and this cross-border nature with the other partners. So you have 5 minutes to answer, like the other panelists. Over to you. Thank you very much. Thank you, moderator. It's a pleasure to be here, dear participants. Thank you very much for inviting me to join this panel. We've got these 3 questions that we've been given, and the first question is regarding the collaboration among the 3 Rome-based agencies, the FAO, WFP, and IFAD. Well, what we can say is that the collaboration among these 3 RBAs started mainly in 2007 in 2 main areas, in Maradi and Zande, in Niger, mainly, and this collaboration has really been about positioning each organization, giving each organization the areas of expertise that are specific to them, and helping them to focus on those areas of expertise. So FAO and the IFAD have been working on production. The FAO and WFP have been working on production, whereas IFAD has been working on regional integration. And this is because funding in these projects is mainly managed by IFAD. So it's about seeking synergies and complementarities among the different agencies. And what we find is that each agency, each RBA is focusing on what they are best at, and they are placing their resources in the places where most benefit can be drawn. And as for the components that have been developed up until now, I could mainly speak about Niger and the work being done since 2021 in 3 areas of activity, because we have had to look at some the mobilization of resources for this since February 2021, and we have been putting together 2 areas of intervention in 2 areas, in Dindimi and the MPD. And these are 3 large packages of financing to strengthen the resilience in communities. And And the first is a agropastoralist project, and the component in Niger is mainly regarding the 50 hectares of degraded soil that are being improved. And this work mobilized 2,500 households over a period of 2 months, and it has meant that these communities have been provided with tools and expertise, capacity building, so that they can develop the area and work on the degraded soils. And peace consolidation has also been another key focus. And we've been working with young people, trying to help them to develop their expertise. And we have the strengthening and developing of agricultural markets. And here we have 4 thematic areas that have received a specific focus, and we have been looking at pest eradication. We've also been working on fisheries, and particularly looking at the characteristics of the local markets and looking at how they can be improved. And then the approach that has been taken up until now has been focusing on specific geographic areas, trans-border areas, cross-border areas, borders shared with Chad and others, looking at production and export possibilities, increasing trade flows among countries, and looking at how RBAs can help with this. And this has been facilitating the work among the countries in general in the G5 Sahel. This work has received a lot of mobilization, and producers have been at the heart of it. Thank you. Yes, thank you very much. We see in this intervention and also in previous ones that when we're looking at the joint program for G5 Sahel, the challenges are huge. There's great conflict in the area, but solutions are there as well. And now His Excellency Papa Abdoulaye Fek will speak, Ambassador of Senegal in Italy and also permanent representative to the FAO, IFAD and WFP. So, Ambassador, sir, you are a specialist in agricultural policy, and you've been working as Director of Research, a lot of expertise that you've been able to develop over the years. So the Sahel has many young people, it's rich in natural resources, it's rich in terms of societal aspects and cultural aspects. Despite the potential, the area faces huge challenges, and this also leads to economic, political and environmental challenges. In your view, how do we get to this point that we're currently in, and what are the opportunities that we need to grasp so that we can overcome the current crisis in a sustainable and long-lasting way? You have 5 minutes, sir. Thank you very much. I would also like to thank the other panelists. I'd like to thank IFAD for allowing me to join this very important panel. I would say the potential for the Sahel is not sufficiently harnessed, and I would like to share with you 5, 6 or 7 reasons for this. And firstly, productivism and production opportunities. A systemic approach to rural development is needed. And then secondly, we have a low level of adoption of innovative technological solutions. These solutions can help us to improve productivity, improve efficiency, and to guarantee the long-lasting nature of our ecosystems. The third factor that I'd point to is low support for family farming. There is smart modernization efforts taking place, but we also have to ensure that family farms are included in these dynamics and taken into account correctly. And then we have the absence of a dynamic private sector and family farming collaboration is needed in order to guarantee bridges between the right actors. And then the sixth factor for us is the lack of basic infrastructure. And this explains why there are post-harvest losses are very high and why transactions don't always take place correctly. And sometimes it's better to deal with storage rather than increasing production, because what we have seen is that often post-harvest losses are the result of are much better, are really caused by storage, and this is related to basic infrastructure. And then the scarce responses in terms of food security and helping peace. Now, the Sahel needs to strengthen its food sovereignty. What does this mean? It means ensuring that we have agri-food systems which are more effective, more efficient, more sustainable, more inclusive, more resilient. How can this be done? Well, firstly, we need adapted technologies. Secondly, we need adequate infrastructure. Thirdly, we need to guarantee production and commercialization. This means restoring soils, degraded soils, access to water, access to markets, accessibility in terms of production factors of high quality, so as to focus first and foremost on small-scale producers. Fourthly, guarantee economic and social factors. Without this, we cannot guarantee the sustainability of our ecosystems. Then fifth, we have concretizing major initiatives such as the Great Green Wall, and an agro-ecological approach will help Sahelians to feed themselves better, looking at production chains and targeting quality so that we can offer those in the Sahel food which is varied and which is also healthy. So when we speak about the potential for the Sahel, we must remember the words that we have heard in the past. You do not feed yourself just on potential. You cannot eat potential alone. You have to transform that potential into something that you can actually have on your plate in front of you, which can feed you and which can nourish you. And I believe that the initiatives discussed here today are indeed going in this direction. We have to combine these factors so that we can continue striding forward and to look at improvements, real concrete improvements for the Sahel. And I'd like to congratulate the UN agencies who are really working in the right direction, looking at systemic issues for agriculture so that we can have effective mastering and harnessing of the right initiatives and to have lasting peace. Thank you. Many challenges there, very exhaustive, very complete, those words. And so we could also have a few words from the UN agencies themselves so that we can understand the extent to which the joint program in the Sahel is addressing the challenges that have been mentioned and also capitalizing on different approaches and solutions. So before opening the floor for questions and answers, I would just like to invite the representatives of the UN agencies once again to answer any of those questions, and also the participants, please, you can put your questions and answers in the Q&A box and just be specific in your questions if possible, please. And so let's go back to the Rome-based agencies. Back to you, Dr. Gay. So we have seen that the issue of climate change is a sizable problem around the world, and it particularly affects the Sahel region. So how can we address this challenge, and what are the most promising solutions for climate change in the region. Over to you. 3 minutes. Thank you very much. So yes, Chad is an area where many people live off small-scale farming and livestock. And in a recent report, it said that without adapting to climate change, there will be huge losses. 2 to 4% of the GDP of the country will be lost by 2040. There are excluded people such as youth and women who will be the worst affected. And in the Sahel, we need to find lasting solutions to the problems, and food security needs substantial investment so that we can adapt to climate change. And this involves concrete actions in many areas. So data gathering, sharing knowledge and expertise for forecasting and managing climate risks, evaluating risks and looking at adaptation, and then regenerating and managing biodiversity. Thirdly, promoting good governance for adaptation to climate change. And then fourthly, adopting innovative climate resilient technology to strengthen value chains. So those are just a few details given the lack of time. And in terms of climate, we have to continue implementing high-performing data gathering systems with effective platforms, and we have to help countries so that they can make effective use of the right tools to manage the risks related to climate change, and particularly measuring rainfall, among others. These aspects are of great importance. And then in terms of sustainable management, we need to promote the conservation of natural resources. And given the lack of time, I won't be able to go into much more detail here, but I would say that the problem of climate change is incredibly significant, and we need a harmonized framework which can actually help us to address climate change in the area, because we can see great degradation and damage. And climate change in the sub-region, and above all, managing water resources is incredibly important for all of the countries in the region. Thank you. Thank you very much. So we clearly understand that great challenges require great solutions. Now, Ms. Fushimi, how can we finance the fight against climate change, and how can we address all of the devastating consequences that can be seen in the region? You have the floor. 3 minutes.
The cost of mobilizing a humanitarian response can be greatly reduced when anticipatory actions and early response systems are in place prior to a failed harvest. Some WFP returns on investment study indicates that $1 invested in anticipatory action can avoid up to $3 in humanitarian response cost. So based on this proved evidence, WFP is leveraging three financing mechanisms for climate risk financing in the Sahel, each implemented according to the context. So the first one is the forecast-based financing, which supports countries to mitigate and manage predictable climate-related risks by linking extreme weather forecast with anticipatory actions before a natural hazard materializes. WFP is currently implementing such approach in Niger. We then have the micro and inclusive insurances, which these protect low-income people excluded from traditional financial services in exchange for regular premiums payments. In the G5 Sahel, and mostly in Niger and Burkina Faso, WFP has, during the 2020-2021 agricultural campaign, allowed nearly 180,000 farming households to access index insurance products and a range of complementary risk management services, benefiting up to 900,000 people. Lastly, we have the macro insurances, which cover a national country to protect entire population, such as the sovereign insurance product offered by the African Risk Capacity Limited. For example, in Mali this year, there was a huge payout, basically the largest that we've ever heard in this region, a payout of $10 million, which is enabling now a support to 200,000 beneficiaries over 3 months ahead of the lean season, including with unconditional cash transfers, but also asset creation activities, resilience building activities, nutritional assistance for children, pregnant and lactating mothers. So ARC replica, for example, is also implemented by WFP in Burkina Faso and Mauritania. But IFAD also and various partners are also combating climate change by giving small-scale producers access to zero-interest financing they often lack, but also by promoting the implementation of climate insurance, as we mentioned earlier. So finally, African governments can also issue green bonds with the support of development banks and the expertise of the Rome-based agencies, for example, in order to raise funds for climate change solutions, for example, also for mitigation, but also adaptation-related projects. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Proschini. Nous avons vu tout à l'heure que, bien entendu, il y a de nombreux...
Just now we saw that there are many challenges. There are also many good initiatives. And there's one in particular, the Great Green Wall. And this is now over 20 years old. And it is now back at the forefront of our minds. And my question is, to what extent this new thrust with the Great Green Wall, how can this benefit society? How can it benefit the people in the Sahel region to respond to food security issues, a lack of income, low incomes in the area, and what's the role played by institutions in the renewal of the Great Green Wall? And for this, I would like to ask Benoit to address this issue.
So I will be very short, as I will pass the floor to Joe Puri, who will explain in detail our activities. In IFAD, we are very happy that the Great Green Wall is being accelerated because, as you say, it's a 20 years old initiative. And now it's time to put all this system in each country together, especially as the climate change is impacting and the population will double in the next 30 years. So we have to give the important elements for food production. So we will continue the same technique, using our project as a hosting project and working with public services, farmer organization in order to implement this aspect of a Great Green Wall. Joe, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Benoit. Thank you so much, Chair, Excellencies, Ambassadors, colleagues. Such a privilege for me to be here. Although the Great Green Wall has been going on for 20 years, I think it's really important that we recognize that there is now new momentum with the Great Green Wall. And really, it should be seen not as a wall, but as a great green inspirational vision, which has really been put into place so that we can adapt to change. As Benoit said as well, there was a previous effort and there was a huge amount of investment that came in from our partners and the World Bank in a similar initiative where some sorts of similar activities were undertaken. But what we have seen and what we are seeing, that the scale and the intensity of the issues that we are witnessing in the Sahel have not just expanded, but have also intensified. So, for example, 12 of the 24 West and Central African countries are fragile and are conflict affected. We're seeing that climate remains a big risk multiplier. And we also know from the recent IPCC report that there will be a reduction in crop yields by 10 to 20% because of drier, more variable weather. Now, because of the work that has been done previously, we have the inordinate advantage of also learning from previous work and building that into the new momentum of the Great Green Wall work that IFAD, along with our partner agencies, is taking forward, WFP as well as FAO. What we learned from the previous initiative is that anything such as ambitious as the Great Green Wall does require very strong technical focus. So for example, in the previous initiative, there was approximately $1.2 billion that was invested. But what remained was, or what did not go through really well, and this came through from a very big evaluation that was also undertaken by the World Bank itself, was that the technical interlinkages needed to be built between different initiatives so that we could see this as a transformational paradigm shift effort across the region. Second, we also recognize from that a key piece of learning is that any environmental and climate positive actions that are undertaken must benefit the poor. And this is really important because we know that in this region, there are more than 30 million food insecure people. And unless these climate positive initiatives are targeting them and building them into the overall low carbon climate resilient development pathways, this initiative is not going to be successful. The third thing, and linked to the second learning that we have, is that we've got to go modular. What I mean by that is we know that, for example, we've got to build in women, indigenous people, the poor, the poorest of the poor into our overall targeting plan. But added to that, we also have pastoralists, we have small-scale farmers, and we have young people. Going modular means we've got to be far more strong in our targeting work than has been done previously. One other key finding has been that we've got to invest in win-win data collection. Now, one of the key things that came out was that it was from the previous work was that it was very difficult to establish as to what was the big additional contribution of the Great Green Wall over and above what would have taken place. We now know that there was the normalized differentiated vegetative index, or the NDVI, for those who are familiar with this, but we also know that partnerships for this need to be built. And in the work that IFAD is doing in the context of the SD3C, we are learning from this. We are engaging with key parts of the SD3C, which also include the Africa Integrated Climate Risk Management Program, which is helping to build the resilience of smallholder farmers to climate change impacts in 7 Sahel countries, as well as with the iGreenFin initiative that has gone to the Green Climate Fund. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Jo. Thank you. Thank you so much. With this, I would like to invite France with a quick statement. France, vous avez la parole.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you.
Merci beaucoup pour cette,
and thank you for this very enriching roundtable. And we appreciate very much seeing the good collaboration and the synergy, the working together of 3 different organizations, in particular the Rome-based agencies. As you know, Sahel is very important for the region. The economic situation is very delicate. There's a lack of diversity. It is strongly dependent on its raw materials in a situation of political instability. And we know that, of course, it is severely affected by the impacts of climate change, along with macroeconomic and budgetary challenges and a worsening of the overall food security situation. And of course, COVID-19 pandemic has aggravated the situation. Our development strategy for this priority area aims at addressing these major challenges, taking into account many different constraints that exist in agricultural policies, security policy, protection of biodiversity, addressing climate change, and of course the SME network, institutional capacity. All of this needs to be strengthened, and the development also must be interlinked with political stability, security, and maintaining sustainable levels of debt. That is why the Great Green Wall is an initiative that we have we have supported and gave new boost to during our last initiative. We consider the Great Green Wall to be extremely relevant to the region. It can ensure agricultural productivity and environmental policy, important in addressing climate change, also improving food security and nutrition in the area, and creating new economic opportunity for the rural population. It is very important in the financial arrangements of the Great Green Wall to consider the crucial role of IFAD. IFAD has specific experience in rural development, in strengthening agricultural value chains, and cross-sectoral integration to address climate change in all of its projects. So the question that we would like to raise today is the following: how can IFAD better harness its experience in the field addressing these challenges in close cooperation with the other resource partners in this initiative? Thank you. The United Kingdom has the floor.
Currently, we do not have the UK at the moment, but if anyone else would like to just put their hand up, you're able to come through to ask your question.
OK, donc j'ai reçu ici.
I here have received a few questions in the chat. I will ask these questions now, and then I will give the floor to our different panelists. The first question was from Nigeria.
Insurgents be removed so that the region can surely minimize migration as well as death of people and of the youth, beside the traumas they experience along the migration route? So that's one question. And the second one from Angola: existe-t-il une complémentarité?
Is there a complementarity and coordination among the projects that are jointly funded by the RBAs and those that are funded by the other agencies, other financial agencies? So this is a question on the complementarity that exists among the different programs implemented in the region. And based on current experience, what would you say are the main aspects that need improvement in the design of future projects for the Sahel region? We also have a question that was addressed directly to IFAD. So I'll give the floor to Benoit for the first answer. And then the question on removing barriers, that's a question that I will ask the coordinator, Mr. Boubacar, to answer that question. And then the question on the complementarity of the different agencies. This is a question that we will ask FAO to answer. Thank you. I think that one of the important elements for working together is the fact that we have established a program structure with the regional organizations, G5, CIL, SS, SILS, etc., and with the governments and with United Nations agencies. So it's a system of hosting projects with components being added to it. It's a very robust and effective system in the field. So we started with this first program worth $180 million. But as was explained also by another speaker, we're expecting another $150 million. And so the program will continue to grow in this way with the contributions coming from the Sahel Alliance project partners. There are 25 partners, and we rely on them very much to participate in the further expansion of this program in the G5 countries, but also in the ECOWAS countries that are experiencing the same difficulties linked to COVID, to community conflict, to local conflict, to climate change. So that is what I would provide as a first answer. Thank you. Thank you. Who would like to now answer the question on collaboration with the other financial institutions in the region? Would FAO like to take this question? I thought that IFAD would answer the question, but what I can say, speaking for FAO, is that cooperation with other financial institutions in the region is very important. Quite obviously, we do work with these agencies. But this cooperation is at a country level. But the projects that we have, and this may also serve to answer the following question, the projects that we have in the field are funded by other agencies in synergy with our initiative. Let me give you an example. We have a project on transboundary pastoralism. And the lessons we've learned in this project are being used by the RBA, in the RBA project. We have a project for these countries that are making use of certain tools. Now, these tools are being used by others. An example would be the cash-based transfers. So we continue to refine our tools, to adapt them as best we can to the local conditions and context, including climate change. Thank you. Thank you very much for that. Mr. Boubacar, can you give us your perspective? What practical response can be given to the issues of insecurity, especially migration involving youth? Thank you. Thank you for that question. It's a question that is very important. FAO spoke of a project previously. It's a project involving young people, helping them to become engaged and more useful in their territories, to see how they can be involved. And it covers a number of different areas in the clubs, and involves youth, both young men and young women, and with the presence of people who try to help them become real agents of development. This is the sort of initiative that can help address migration. It's important to consider also community-based participatory planning, working therefore at the village level or a small group of villages, bringing together the people and working to really understand, to identify the true concerns of the people living in the villages, see what sort of solutions would be useful, and then bringing them up, escalating them to a higher level, to the level of the political authorities that can address these issues at the field level. So these are the sort of practical approaches that we're working on, and we think that they can help deal with the issue of migration. Of course, this requires that the projects work in synergy so that we can have effective solutions to these many problems. Thank you. Thank you. I would like to also ask the Executive Secretary of the G5 Sahel to answer this question. You have both a security and a development mandate. So practically speaking, how can youth migration be addressed? We can hear you, yes. Please go ahead. Migration is a major challenge, and that is why we have been working with the youth population as much as we possibly can to try to exploit all of the potential opportunities to help them remain where they are. That definitely is part of our mandate. And we work in a project to build resilience of youth. especially youth in areas that have been severely affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. And our policy really is to ensure that the youth that are tempted by migration or that are also vulnerable to recruitment by terrorist organizations do not fall for this temptation. This requires financing from institutions that can support them so that we can develop programs that are effective. But often it is when we come to the practical implementation, we have the issues. But it's important that these young people remain in the Sahel. There are opportunities there. But unfortunately, the situation is what you described. We hope that presenting the opportunities can help people understand this issue, and organizations such as the G5 Sahel, which has the dual mandate you explained, can be as effective as possible. But of course, this requires the support of our other partnerships. Partnership is key, and we cannot address the issue of youth migration working on our own. And that is why we really encourage this exchange in the framework of partnerships with the regional, sub-regional organizations, along with the United Nations and international organizations. Of course, FAO, IFAD, WFP are very important. Without developing the agriculture, I see the issue being very difficult. It is a sector that can give employment to youth very well, but of course they must be interested in it. It must be attractive to them. We have to give them the resources. And we do see the young people are ready to engage in agriculture and livestock to build their lives in that. So that is what I'd like to provide as a response to your question. Thank you. Thank you for that. Before giving the floor to the United Kingdom, which United Kingdom has a question for WFP, I would like to ask Joe Barry to answer also the question regarding the cooperation with financial institutions. You have the floor, Joe.
Thank you so much, Nadaya. Really good questions, and perhaps a part reference also to the first question asked by about the comparative advantage of IFAD. So, for example, if you look at the Africa Integrated Climate Risk Management Program, there we are collaborating with, of course, all of the Rome-based agencies, but also with the African Development Bank. And here we're trying to reduce the amount of agricultural risk, and we're helping to see as to how we can transfer it, but also how we can mitigate it with the help of agriculture micro and macro insurance. And this is where IFAD's comparative advantage lies. As being an IFI, but working with the rural poor, we are also able to ensure that we are able to make small ticket item investments, which many other agencies cannot or do not. One other example is building this idea of private sector involvement. Clearly, we need to see that we are able to galvanize resources from the private sector as well. And here we've got to lower the financial barriers as well as the non-financial barriers. And with the iGreen Fin project, which has gone to the GCF, that's exactly what we are doing. We are building value chains, but we are also working with MFIs, so microfinance institutions, CSOs, as well as organizations on the ground, so that these discounted credit lines to whom there are longer tenors, there are reduced interest rates, they are offered to people on the ground, to the smallholder farmers, so that we can slowly transform the space. My last comment on this is also to say that as IFAD, we also engage with the Global Environment Facility and the GCF. And that helps us to then build these integrated programs, not just at the country level through COSOPs, but also at the regional level. And at the regional level, for example, IFAD is leading the GEF Resilient Food Systems Program, where many of these countries come together, and also planning to take a lead on the impact programs that GEF is leading. And with this way, we bring in different funders under the same platform. Thank you, Nadaya.
Thank you so much. Now I would like to invite the United Kingdom to ask the question and also to specify who they would like to respond to the question. Please, over to you.
Thank you, Tom. If you could please unmute and ask your question, that would be wonderful. Thank you very much.
Hi, I can't get my camera on, but can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Thank you very much. I'm Tom Kelly, the IFAD governor here. I just wanted to say that it's really great to hear about the three Rome-based agencies working together in this really important regional program, IFAD governors and members of the other two agencies often talk about the need for collaboration, and it's great to see some practical examples of this. My question really is how IFAD and the other agencies are developing a results framework to set out what the agencies are doing in this program. I think it would be really useful for that results framework to show who is responsible and accountable for what activities, and how IFAD and other agencies are reporting against that. So that's my question, if that work is being done and when you can share it with member states. The WFP reference earlier was just a reference to the executive board at the end of this month when WFP's results framework is coming up. But we're looking at this from a Rome-based agencies approach as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. So who from the representation from the Rome-based agency would like to answer this question? Yes, Elvira, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Really very, very interesting questions, all of them. I just wanted to take advantage, since I have the floor, to just, provide a bit of, practical information about, the reduction of migration that we have been observing in our resilience scale-up implementation in the Sahel. And just, to give some evidence. For example, from Niger, we've also seen how communities participating in the resilience program we have seen that distress migration has reduced significantly, and over 40% of households report, in fact, that distress migration has decreased, partly due to the improvement of their food security, and also because of the job that we are creating through this integrated resilience program. Also leveraging the 3C, this very innovative partnership with the three Rome-based agencies. But also, there is also acknowledgement that, there is increased economic opportunities in Burkina Faso, for example, where many young men, for example, traditionally migrate to Côte d'Ivoire or to gold mining sites in other parts of the countries, especially after the rainy season. Now we've seen that thanks to the integrated resilience interventions, such as reclaiming degraded land for fodder production, for example, considering that majority are also pastoralists, participants of the program were able to meet their food needs without the need to migrate. So instead, they chose to stay in their villages to carry out resilience activities that would benefit the entire community. So this is just to give a small, even if it's anecdotal evidence that, investing in an integrated resilience package intervention with the participation of the Rome-based agencies and our partners, we can actually help curb out migration, and especially distress migration. With regards to the results framework, in fact, this is one of the huge components we have been working on, especially in the last few months. We have set up a results group with participants from the three Rome-based agencies. We have agreed on a common results framework and agreed to have common indicators based on which we will be, and we are monitoring results in a collective manner. There is also, a plan that entails like joint monitoring visits to the 6 Sahelian countries, and I believe that all three base agencies are making the necessary investment to enable this active monitoring of results, which then will feed, of course, to these joint reports and regular update to our respective board on the progress that we are making in terms of results and implementation of this program. Maybe Benoit, you may want to compliment me because you are really at the front of this initiative. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Elvira. I was just going to pass the floor to Benoit before inviting Germany for to actually with the comment. So Benoit, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you very much. And indeed, to answer a UK question, this joint result framework is almost ready by now. We built it on the project and all the comparative advantage of each of our agencies. So this will be soon shared with the IFAD members. And I would add as well that this joint framework that helps a lot to monitor the program with the indicators and see the result and the impact. And this is important not only for the result in the field, of course, but if we want to expand the program and raise more funding in the future. And speaking on funding, I'd like to say that because the program raised a lot of interest among donors and technical and financial partners, we will also establish a joint resource mobilization strategy. We have a first draft, which was established with the 3 Rome-based agencies and our partners. And once this is finalized, we hope to engage in some events, especially with Alliance Sahel, to raise more funds for the program. Thank you very much, Daya.
Thank you both to you and Elvira for clarifying that yes, there is a common results framework with clear accountability of who's doing what. Now, I would like to invite Germany, please, to ask the question directly and to specify to whom this question is directed to. Over to you, Germany.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the presentations and the very important focus on this area. I also found it important to have this emphasis on learning, because I think what we have to see is that despite all of the international engagement and the national engagement, the situation is not really getting better enough, at least to assure positive development. And the structural issues are still there. The Senegalese ambassador has rightly pointed out all these issues, despite that would be there even without the insecurity that we have. This is also the question that I have a little bit. This is obviously a huge area with very particular specificities in different countries. How does the program actually assure that that you find the access to the local communities that you want to get to the women, to the youth, to the local level, especially in areas that are less secure, where access is very difficult for government officials, for external actors? How do you actually make sure that you can reach them? Do you work? And how do you work with local, for example, local governments or smallholder associations on the local level to make sure that you're not bypassing them, but strengthening them, and in this way also strengthen the confidence in these institutions? Thank you very much.
Thank you. I believe so. This question may be first answered by Elvira, talking about how to go in those areas where there is could be security issue, and then the other colleagues from the other agency will come in. Elvira? And
no,
1 minute,
absolutely.
please.
Sure. Basically,
1 minute, and 1 minute.
Okay, can you hear me? So, yeah, it's basically how do we manage to ensure access to affected communities in the Sahel? Of course, insecurity and access challenges particularly impact the operation and program implementation, especially in the Central Sahel. And of course, it does also pose impediment to the expansion of the integrated resilience intervention and also geographical targeting. But and we acknowledge that access may continue to be hindering, our ability to reach the population in the near future. But we do have access strategies in place, which are first and foremost based on acceptance. Is accountability and communication with communities, and which basically this is an important, a critical mechanism, that plays a crucial role. And important, the participatory and inclusive approach and consensual decision, also involving the local authorities, is the main tool for WFP to sustain access to affected communities. Important also, as my colleague was saying earlier on, this participatory approach mechanism where the community actually take charge of the planning and identifying, what are the gaps, what are the solutions, and then see themselves as part of the solution. And the possibility, in fact, to refine the targeting and ensuring that we target communities with the intention to lay down the foundation for a peaceful cohabitation and sharing of resources, participation in communal asset creation. And all this really creates the basis for, of course, community acceptance. Also, a very systematic communication, with the local authorities, but also with the key traditional authorities at the community level, etc.
Thank you. Thank you, Elvira. Thank you, Elvira. I'm going to have to pass it on to Thierry, and 1 minute, so then we can close. Thierry,
oui, merci beaucoup.
Yes, thank you very much. And I too think that FAO might be able to answer this, but indeed, what is really interesting in the Sahel program is that all stakeholders or partners are integrated. In the communities, it's the breeders' organizations and farmers' organizations that are the link, and that's in the ground. At the upper level, it's the technical services and NGOs. And finally, communication happens between regional organizations and UN agencies, including UNIS. So I think that the structure of the program for the whole of the Sahel covers the different points that were raised by Germany. And that in relation to that, I think that now we really have to focus on the field activities that can really have a true impact on populations and provide responses. Thank you. And I give the floor over to Robert. Yes, just a couple of words to say that the program was conceived in order to meet all of these requirements, the components of the program too. As to the communities, as I said at the outset, we really do work at the grassroots level using community development. In any event, I'd like to thank you very kindly. We have come to the end of this event, and so I'd like to take just a couple of minutes of your time to thank the panelists for having provided us with very frank answers and clarified the various conditions related to the implementation of the program. Thank you for not having concealed the great challenges, but also having shed light on initial answers that are very promising. I also wish to thank participants for having engaged in the discussion and having asked questions that have provided us with room for thought, food for thought. We realize that major challenges are ahead of us. But anyway, I'd like to once again thank all the panelists and all the institutions, and especially participants in the field that are making all this possible. So once again, thank you very much on behalf of IFAD and partner organizations. Thank you.